Are you caught off guard by the gradual weight gain that's stacked up over the years? Are you tired of hitting the gym 3 to 4 times a week consistently just to maintain your current weight? As somebody that used to have an extremely negative relationship with body image, I've had my fair share of problems in the past when it comes to weight management. Everything they tell you not to do, I've pretty much done it all. And throughout the last decade of my healing process, I've gained some valuable insight that might sound counterintuitive to the common sense and ideas that we generally have about weight loss today. If you're tired of seeing the same tips over and over again, here are 5 unusual tips that's helped me not only understand my body better, but also manage and maintain my weight at a pretty consistent number for the last 10 years. Realistically speaking, there are periods of time in our lives where working out regularly just isn't the highest priority, right? Maybe you're really busy, or you might have gotten injured, or there are events that might not allow you to exercise on a regular basis for an extended period of time. So the tips that I'm going to share with you today are not about how to get into the best shape of your life, but it's about how to sustain your body at a relatively consistent weight without feeling the need or the pressure to constantly burn calories just to stay where you are. To tell you a bit about my experience, I was actually at my heaviest in my teens, and then I went through a long vicious cycle of extreme diets, very unhealthy eating habits, over-exercising for hours at the gym. And this cycle lasted for years where I would take extreme measures to drop 30 pounds, gain most of it back, lose it again, gain it back and more. But for the past 10 years or so, my weight has stayed pretty consistent. I still had some ups and downs, but more importantly than weight fluctuations, I've reached a state where I don't worry constantly about weight gain creeping in or feeling guilty about not going to the gym for weight-related reasons. And in reaching my current state, what I've learned over the years is that what needs to change is not your workout routine or what you eat, but it has to do with how you perceive exercise and food and weight management. And with that said, here comes the first tip, which is if you're gonna go on a fad diet, do it, but keep it short. Now, I know you're already thinking, yeah, but the weight you lose on just a few days of dieting is all water weight. Yes, that's correct. But if you've ever been on a fast or a cleanse or any form of a short and intense calorie restriction, you'll know that even with just the water weight gone, you are going to notice a significant difference in your body visually, just by getting rid of the bloating and the swelling from the excess water in your body. I use these visible and immediate changes in my body as sort of a reset button, both physically and mentally. Humans are visual creatures, and seeing immediately visible results automatically sets off a trigger in our brains. And you can use that trigger to your advantage in order to either jumpstart your weight loss journey or as a way to reflect on how little attention you've been paying to the changes in your own body. You should never lose sight of the fact that short-term methods yield short-term results, so they'll never be the be-all, end-all, but use these short-term results as a motivator to prolong that result for as long as you can, which is going to help you develop and implement long-term habits. Now, obviously, if you currently have any underlying health issues or concerns, you should always be consulting your doctor before making any changes to your diet, even for a short-term period. And also, you shouldn't be using this method too frequently as a way to repeat terrible habits, like going on a cleanse for 3 days and then binge eating, and then relying on the 3-day cleanse again to compensate for everything you ate. That's obviously bad for your health, and from my experience, doing this frequently is not very effective because your body could get used to the pattern. I found that once every 3 to 6 months is the right frequency for me that has the biggest impact on both the body and the mind. Speaking of health, one thing we want to be extra mindful about, especially if you're considering a short-term cleanse or a calorie-restricted diet, is making sure that we still get all the nutrients that our bodies need. Even if you're not on a diet, there are some nutrients that are just difficult to get enough of from food alone. And I find taking multivitamin tablets to be the easiest way of making sure that I'm getting all the key nutrients that I need. And with that said, I'd like to thank the sponsor of today's video, Ritual. Ritual's Essential for Women Multivitamin 18+ is a clinically backed product formulated with key high-quality nutrients that can help with filling common dietary gaps. It's vegan-friendly, non-GMO, gluten-free, major allergen-free without any extras or artificial colorants, and it's designed to support foundational health including brain health, bone health, blood building, and antioxidant support. As I said, I enjoy the convenience of taking just 2 capsules a day without having to think about it too much. And Ritual's multivitamin is designed with a delayed release capsule where the capsules dissolve later in your small intestines, which is an ideal place to absorb nutrients. It's also designed to be gentle on the stomach, meaning you can take them with or without food, and that really makes it easy for you to stay consistent with taking them on a daily basis, regardless of whether you're on a short-term diet or a cleanse. It was really cool to learn more about the company's founder and her story about creating her own brand of products that can trace back all the labeled ingredients. With so many brands and products being available these days, I think it's really important to find a company that you can trust and feel confident about. And with Ritual, if you're not happy with their products after 30 days, they offer a full refund with no questions asked. If you want to start a daily ritual that you can feel good about, Ritual is offering you 20% off during your first month. You can scan my QR code on the screen or visit ritual.com/stylemeijen to get started today. Going back to the main topic, here's tip number 2. The scale is actually your best friend. We're always told that weight is just a number, so you shouldn't be looking at the scale too often because it demotivates you. While I agree that your weight doesn't tell the full story, it can also tell you a lot. If I'm 10 pounds heavier on the scale, chances are I look 10 pounds heavier too, even though I might not feel so as much. Of course, when you lift weights and you gain a lot of muscle, your body composition changes and you don't necessarily look bigger if all the gain is from your muscles and you've actually lost fat. But gaining 10 pounds of pure muscles not only takes a long time and dedication, but your body also looks pretty different that you probably wouldn't feel the need to watch this video right now if you've actually gained 10 pounds of pure muscle. In my experience, I found that I avoided the scale because I was just worried about how much weight I've gained. I didn't want to face reality, and I would just use excuses that weight is just a number, it's my hormones, it's the bloating, it's that time of the month. But I didn't actually have an understanding of what time of the month I'm the heaviest or the lightest, how much my weight fluctuates from eating food or drinking water or using the bathroom, what the difference in my weight actually is first thing in the morning versus before bed. If you don't have a clear understanding of these things, you can't really tell how much of the weight gain is from hormones or food or water versus actual fat that's being stored in your body. Our weight does fluctuate because of the things we just talked about, like food, water, bowel movement, and also depending on your hormones and what time of the month it is. So don't let a few pounds of fluctuations in your weight discourage you, but also don't let that be an excuse to stop checking in with where your body's at. If you've consistently weighed yourself at the same time each day, let's say first thing in the morning, and you notice that there's ups and downs, but on average you're staying pretty consistent month to month, then those fluctuations are not because you're actually gaining fat. But if you're on a consistent incline, even if they're in small increments, that's a clear indicator that it's something other than food, water, and hormones. So do step on the scale more often. You have to understand how much your body fluctuates first before you can say weight is just a number, or that these fluctuations are purely because of factors other than gaining fat. Don't use fluctuations as an excuse to stop checking in on yourself. Tip number 3, exercise your brain because something is better than nothing. There isn't any scientific evidence that using your brain leads to more fat loss. In fact, the brain can only use glucose as its energy source, unlike other parts of our bodies that can use stored fat as energy. But in simple terms, excess glucose is what gets converted into fat. So if it's excess glucose that leads to fat gain, then doesn't it make sense to use up that excess glucose before it gets turned into fat? Now, I'm not trying to be scientifically correct here because I don't understand the complexity of the human body all that well, especially in a scientific sense. So I'm likely oversimplifying things, but the point I'm trying to drive is more so a matter of principle and a particular mindset. If glucose is what leads to storing more fat in our bodies when our bodies have excess of it, then logically the solution to not gaining fat is to use up all the glucose. And that can come in the form of exercise and going to the gym. But if all our organs use glucose as the immediate energy source, any part of our body, including our brain, will take part in using up that energy. And using more of our brain is not going to help with breaking down the stored fat in our bodies, but at least it uses up some of the excess glucose that our bodies might have, right? I think this kind of mindset of something is better than nothing can change the way we look at our daily activities. Maybe instead of mindless doom scrolling, we can download a mentally stimulating game that requires us to use more of our brain power every day. Maybe when you're brushing your teeth or doing dishes, you can do cat phrases. Or when you're sitting at the desk at work, you can do mini breathing exercises that strengthen your core. Burning calories or excess glucose in our bodies doesn't only have to come in the form of going to the gym or exercising vigorously for an hour. There are actually lots of little things we can do throughout our day and incorporate into our day-to-day activities without taking up much time in our schedules. And with the something is better than nothing mindset, all these little things can add up, and they may not be activities that necessarily make you lose weight, but they can amount to something that at least prevents you from further weight gain. Just because you're not hitting the gym regularly or investing a lot of time into exercising or moving your body, it doesn't mean you can't find little tweaks throughout the day that can be taken as a preventative measure. We need to step away from the all or nothing mindset to the something is better than nothing mindset, because it's usually these small things that add up to make a big enough change. Tip number 4, nothing is new under the sun or in your mouth. This tip actually has 2 parts to it. The first part is the more obvious one, which is that all these new methods of diets and losing weight are nothing new. At the end of the day, they're just the same theories wrapped with a new perspective to be presented as something that people don't already know about. But the theory is more or less the same. Eat less sugar, less carbs, more protein, eat good types of fats, burn calories, keep your heart rate in a certain range to induce a more effective fat loss. I feel like we've heard them all, and it's important to understand that if these methods were truly revolutionary and they were as easy as they claim to be, then no one would have a weight problem. So that's the first part of the tip, which is pretty simple and straightforward. Now the second part is, just like nothing is new under the sun, nothing tastes new in your mouth either. Food has 2 purposes: to fill your hunger enough so that your body can use it as energy to function regularly, and to fulfill the joy of tasting something delicious in your mouth. I have this habit when I'm eating, at some point I'll say, oh my gosh, I'm full. But that's not when I stop eating. I actually eat far beyond that point, or I used to. So when I say that I'm full, it's not an indicator that I'm so full I can't eat anymore, but I'm literally indicating I'm starting to feel satisfied. My hunger is satisfied. So eating beyond that point is not to fulfill my hunger anymore, but it's to fulfill the second purpose of food, which is the joy of having delicious food. And the fact that nothing tastes new in my mouth is something that I'm consciously trying to remember, because I find it helps me with portion control. If my hunger is already satisfied, anything I eat beyond that point is to fulfill my desire to taste something delicious in my mouth. But I already know what the food in front of me tastes like exactly. It's nothing new. And if I ignore this fact and I continue to eat until I'm filled up to here, I realize that that experience is no longer positive or joyful for me. It's actually quite uncomfortable to eat to the point where you feel like you can't move or like you're literally filled up to your throat. So this is something that I've been trying to keep at the back of my mind for a long time now. Beyond satisfying my hunger, if I overindulge in something because it tastes good, even though I know exactly what that food tastes like already, what I'm left with is an uncomfortable belly, a lethargic body, and a huge amount of guilt for eating beyond my necessary limit. I found this tip to be really helpful in understanding what my portion size is and just being more aware of the amount of food that I eat in general. And I think it's especially helpful for things like desserts or snacks because they don't necessarily fill you up. So having that thought of nothing tastes new in my mouth at the back of my mind helps me prevent myself from overindulging to an unnecessary point. Tip number 5, it's okay to admit that you want to be thin.
Like, you have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin.
As a Korean, I find that talking about weight loss comes a lot more naturally amongst my Korean friends. We can talk more openly about our desires to be skinnier or to reach a certain weight. And no one will judge me for saying that I want to be a specific weight, unless, of course, that weight is a dangerously low number. Whereas if I say I want to reach a certain weight to one of my non-Korean girlfriends, they'd be like, girl, you're crazy, you're not even big. And they'd go on about how I don't need to lose more weight, how unhealthy of a belief it is for someone at my weight to want to be skinnier, and how the societal expectations of a woman's appearance is too restrictive, etc. And while I agree with a lot of these points, I have actually lived with those extremely unhealthy habits and thoughts in the past, and I have no plans of going back to that kind of a lifestyle or mindset. But that doesn't mean that my desire to be at a lower weight has completely vanished all of a sudden, nor does it mean that I'm going to take unhealthy measures to reach my goal weight. What I'm trying to say is that wanting to be skinnier and having those desires doesn't correlate directly to unhealthy choices. That is completely up to you to control. But because in North American society today, it feels like we're not really allowed to say these things out loud if we're not already overweight, I feel like we use the term being healthy as a way to disguise how a lot of us feel. But if you think about it, in order for us to actualize our goal, we need to be able to vocalize it and set a clear expectation of what it is that we actually want. So it's okay for you to say that you want to be thin. Just because we're within the normal weight range, it doesn't mean that we should have zero desires to be slimmer. We're allowed to want what we want. And having the desire to reach a weight goal doesn't take away from our willingness to stay healthy, nor does it mean that we prioritize one over the other. We're allowed to want both things, and we can have both. In my opinion, admitting what you actually want and being honest with yourself is going to help you get closer to reaching your goal, and also to stay more in tune with how your body is changing. Now that we've gone through the 5 tips, you might be wondering, do you have any tips for weight loss rather than just maintenance? If you can honestly master incorporating these tips into your daily lives, then adding a regular workout routine on top would be the excess calories you're burning to now use your stored fat as your energy source. I'm sure that might sound a bit of an anticlimactic answer, but I've been incorporating these tips into my daily life for a while now, and I'm at a point where I try to incorporate working out regularly, more so in order to maintain muscles and endurance level. And even though I haven't been working out for a while lately, I know that depending on the varying levels of intensity in my exercises, I can be in control of where my weight sits at. So maybe my next video on this topic can be about the types of workouts I incorporate into my routine to shed a few pounds. Let me know what you guys think about the idea in the comments below. Weight management is something that most of us have at the back of our minds constantly, but like I said, I think how you perceive exercise and food is far more important than what kinds of exercises you do or the types of foods you eat. And I hope that these tips have provided you with some new perspective on viewing the topic as not something that confines you to fit into a specific mold or a standard, but rather part of a journey of learning more about your own body and becoming the best version of yourself. I'll see you in my next video, and until then, stay unique and stay gorgeous.